Alright, you are welcome to SK Pass International College. If you have not subscribed to this video yet, kindly subscribe to the channel. You can also search me on Google, SK Pass International College. Then all our details will be found there. You can get my number, you can call me so that I assist you in tutorial services. We are still on chemical bonding. In our previous video, we studied about the various types of chemical bonding. We started by talking about the two main types, that is the interatomic bonding or bonds. Under these interatomic bonds, we looked at the various types of interatomic bonds. Then we also have the intermolecular. So under the interatomic bonding, we have what we call ionic bond, so these are the various types of interatomic bonds. We have the ionic bonds, the covalent bonds, metallic bonds. We have discussed everything on ionic bonds. So in our video today, we are going to concentrate on the covalent bond, a type of covalent bond called coordinate bonds or dative covalent bond. That is what we will talk about today. Then talking about this, we also look at the metallic bonds. But under these two main types, interatomic bond, we said another name for this interatomic bond is also called intramolecular bonds or primary bonds. So either you call these primary bonds or intramolecular bonds or interatomic bonds. Then we have what we call the intermolecular bonds. Under the intermolecular bonds, we have what we call dipole-dipole, we have hydrogen bonding, then we have the LDF, which we call the landing dispersion forces. So these are the various types of intermolecular bonds. So if you go to the examination and it asks to give some types of chemical bonds, you can just mention ionic bonds, covalent bonds, metallic bonds. You can talk about dipole-dipole, hydrogen bonding, and then the landing dispersion forces. Another name for this landing dispersion force is what we call the van der Waals forces. Under these van der Waals forces, we have what we call dipole-dipole, induced dipole, induced dipole. So today, in this video, our concentration is going to be on coordinate bonds under the covalent bond. So let's look at now, under this discussion, our main focus is on coordinate bonds. Another name for this coordinate bond is called dative covalent bond. In our previous video, we said that anytime we are talking about covalent bonding, it is just a matter of the sharing of bond pair electrons or electron pairs. Now, in this particular sharing, there is a special rule you need to follow. So under the covalent alone, we can get what we call polar covalent bonds. So under the covalent bonding alone, we have polar covalent bonds, non-polar covalent, and dative covalent bond. Now, one thing we need to understand is that when we talk of covalent bonding, we are talking about non-polar covalent bonds. Now, this non-polar covalent bond has another name called pure covalent bond. So, in actual sense, anytime we are talking about covalent bond, we are basically referring to the non-polar, which is the pure covalent bonds. We need to know the differences between the various types of covalent bonds. That is the polar covalent, the non-polar, which we normally refer to as the covalent bond, and then the dative. Another name for the dative is called the coordinate bonds. In our previous video, we have explained a lot on polar covalent. We said that for polar covalent bonds, they are formed as a result of the unequal sharing of bond pair electrons or electron pairs. Anytime we are sharing electrons such that the sharing is unequal, this is HCl, hydrogen chloride. We realize that this hydrogen is partially positive and this is partially negative. So you realize that one of these species is more electronegative, and electrons will try to put where there is more electronegativity. So this is unequal sharing, although they share, but the sharing is unequal. So a situation whereby a sharing is done such that the sharing is unequal, we call that type of sharing or covalent bond as polar covalent bond. So a simple or a typical example of that is HCl. Now with the non-polar covalent bonds, these bonds are formed as a result of the equal sharing of bond pair electrons. For instance, in drawing of the Lewis-Dot structures, when I have this, you realize that this is formed as a result of this hydrogen molecule or hydrogen gas. The sharing here is done equally. You bring this, I bring that. You bring 2, I bring 2. So in this sharing, there is equal sharing. But today, in this video, our focus is not on polar and non-polar, but our focus is on what we call coordinate bond or dative covalent bond. Why the name dative? Dative in the sense that anytime in our local settings, anytime there is dating, what we normally see is that there is donation or sharing, but in this sharing, one person donates to the other. So in dative covalent bonding, it is formed as a result of the sharing of bond pair electrons, where it is only one of the bond pair electron or species which is donating electron to the other. So in dative covalent bond, let's assume I have this NH3 and this NH3 want to bond with this. We are going to form something like this. This is what we call the coordinate bond. Why is it called coordinate bond or dative? The reason is there are some conditions that must be considered anytime there is dative covalent bonding or formation of dative covalent bonds. And one of the conditions is that for dative covalent bond to occur, one of the species or the bonded electron should have a lone pair electron. One of the species should have a lone pair electron. So you realize that in this example, you realize that this nitrogen has a lone pair, and the other species should also have an empty orbital or empty shell. So looking at this hydrogen, is having an empty shell. So for dative covalent bond to occur, one of the species should have a lone pair and the other should have an empty shell for a dative covalent bonding to occur. So if you are asked to define this or explain dative covalent bonding, it's the type of bond, is the bond formed as a result of sharing of bond pair electrons, where the two electrons shared is donated by one of the bonded electron, or the electron shared is being donated by one of the bond pair electrons. So in this case, although sharing is done, but the donation is done by only one of the bond pair electrons and not the two of them. Alright, so that is how how coordinate bonds are formed. For instance, if you have something like H2O, we know water has, the oxygen has a lone pair, and I have another empty orbital. This will be formed as a result of this. So hydrozonium ion is formed as a result of what we call dative covalent bond. Ammonium ion, this is ammonium ion. Ammonium ion is formed as a result of dative covalent bond. Then hydrozonium ion is also formed as a result of dative covalent bonding. So one thing we need to understand is that for dative covalent bonding to occur, it occurs when one of the species sharing the electron pair with is having a lone pair, and then the other species you are sharing the electron with has an empty shell. A situation whereby the other we are sharing with is also having a lone pair, then it means dative covalent bond cannot occur. So let's note this. These are the main conditions for dative covalent bond to occur. In our next video, we shall be looking at metallic bonding, which is also another interesting or a type of what? Interatomic bond. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel, like the video, comment and share. See you in our next video.